Hey, do you remember Atomic Heart? Probably not. This game was good, but it was disappointing. Not terribly disappointing, but definitely not as good as it could have been. I think the game is bad, but in like a mediocre kind of way. Not as in the game is unplayable and boring. It just has problems that honestly kill what could have been a great game from the start. It had an absolute amazing marketing strat and a controversy which I won't go over because I really don't care. Notice I said from the start, I remember this game being painful to get through, but it seems as if there was plenty of balancing patches done to it a long while after it came out. But so nowadays, I honestly got further than I thought I would. Everything felt a bit more balanced and I honestly had a decent time with it. It still has some of the major issues plaguing it, but it's alright now. But I wouldn't blame you if you think this game is an amazing game. But this video is about why it failed when it came out, and it honestly disappointed a lot of people, including me. The things and issues I'm about to go over are all things relevant to when the game first came out. Today in 2024, some things might have been tweaked and or fixed, but they weren't fast enough to fix it day one or anytime near the release. The damage is done. Everybody beat the game and got their first impressions of the game with an unbalanced nightmare of a game. It basically killed any hype and hope for the game. So yeah, let's talk about what the game does that is actually good first. Graphically, it's an impressive game. Sometimes though, especially in the woods, it gets really grainy. I played this game in two computers and both times it just looks super grainy. I don't know, it's also kinda horribly optimized. I don't know what it is, but it just feels like it runs at 45 FPS. I can run Cyberpunk at max settings, ray tracing on, at more than 60 FPS, so it's not my PC. But yeah, I had to go back and record footage, and because of the way this game feels, I honestly had to stop a few times because I felt like my brain was sweating. I also think the presentation is top tier, like holy shit, that intro is so good. It triggered Bioshock Infinite flashbacks.
Hallelujah.
Everything has a cool retro Russian aesthetic and I love it. Some of the characters are memorable. The MC is kinda annoying though. You have a talking glove and the developers saw this as an opportunity to make that cliche bond between characters where the main guy is in front of the guy he's stuck with. But then he realizes that he did really care for it. But the thing is, they kinda push the whole he doesn't like him at first part too much. He constantly shouts and tells people to shut up. Like, it honestly gets to a point where you want him to shut up when he tells people to shut up.
Yeah, many happy returns. Cut to the chase, would you? I've got places to be. Yeah, been there, done that. Skip the foreplay.
Didn't you say you were in a hurry just a moment ago?
Shut your trap and keep scanning, would you? On a shingle, why didn't you tell me that before?
And right now, we are taking our first steps on this historic journey.
Like, I swear, he is pissed all the time. Every time the glove speaks up for literally anything, it's always, "Oh my god, Charles, shut up." Like, he says it with a tone that makes it sound like the glove has been talking for like hours or something. Like, bro, that was his second line ever in the game. I don't know, maybe that's a Russian thing, I don't know. The soundtrack is also really good. It's a soundtrack, by the way. To call it an OST will be kind of a stretch, because the standouts of the game are usually set pieces that have a remix song or just straight up copyrighted music. But honestly, the songs they chose are really good, and those few set pieces where they use them are actually really memorable. They also do have some cool songs in combat, and the menu theme is god tier. I also remember everybody gushing about the looting system in this game, where you basically just vacuum everything. It's really cool and satisfying, yeah, but it honestly makes the looting mindless. Like, I deadass don't know what I just got. Like, oh boy, I just got a whole lot of schmingle bops and dipple gloops. Anyway, that's about all it does that is good. I think artistically, in everything that it has to do with just presentation, it's amazing. Like, literally everything. However, everything else is where it kind of falls apart in the gameplay kind of area. I think the rest has the ability to be good, but they failed. It's like they had all the ingredients on a cookbook, but they fucked around and served me a mayo burger. The beginning part of the game goes on forever. I remember how horrible it felt to be stuck in the bunker part of the game. It felt dragged out to oblivion, so when I went to install the game again, I wasn't surprised to see that it took me 20 hours to beat the game. Felt like I spent at least 6 hours in that beginning bunker area, but to be fair, I was exploring and reading everything, so yeah, that might just be me. But when I replayed it again to get footage, which by the way was painful, it didn't feel that long. Mostly because I turned down the difficulty and skipped side quests and literally everything. I skip everything just so I can get footage. But even then, I got to this tree part and collected 2 keys and I was like, oh, that was it? I could have sworn this part was longer. Then it asked me to collect 4 more keys, each one being separated into their own areas of the map. They honestly killed the pacing with this section, and then after you finally are out of the bunker, they drop you into this forest section that is full of cameras and walking robots that when they spot you, they start an alarm that triggers infinitely respawning enemies that get repaired by infinitely respawning drones. It's a stealth section. Does that sound fun right after being stuck in a bunker area for like 6 hours? To be honest, when I first got out the bunker during my first playthrough, I kind of was like, damn, this is a red flag for the rest of the game. I just know it is. And I was kind of right, sadly. Seriously, it's like getting off a 10-hour long plane trip, then getting stuck in traffic on your way out the airport. Then you open this semi-open world section, which is dumb. They should have just done linear. This section felt so undercooked. There isn't much to do here. There is small side missions and stuff that give you an upgrade, but only one is really worth going for. And the rest of the map is useless and it feels like you can't even go anywhere because you'll trigger cameras and stuff. Infinite enemies is not fun, okay? As you can see, I'm not really a big fan of the first part of the game. Honestly, after this open world part, it gets better. For the most part, you don't deal with cameras anymore. That's an improvement. And it becomes more linear, which thank God. Linear is good, people. Not everything needs to be open world. Still not great though, but now let's talk about the combat. Combat is fun, but that's also the game's biggest issue. They have interesting mechanics, ideas, enemies, and bosses to fight, but they just didn't know how to use them properly. First thing first, your weapons are so underpowered, it's crazy. None of them felt satisfying to use, they all look and sounded decent, but their firepower is not there. Seriously, the guns are doo-doo with hairs in this game. I swear it never ever feels like your guns are improving. You buy upgrades, but it only ever feels like your gun is like 1% stronger. I do want to say though that it used to take up to 6 shots from the shotgun when the game came out, and now it just takes 2 in the hardest difficulty. So yeah, I think they definitely did some balancing issues. But anyways, it doesn't help that the enemies are absolute bullet sponges. They are so absurdly bullet spongy in this game. Melee doesn't help either. I mean, just look. And then they be spawning like up to 10 enemies at a time. It honestly gets irritating. Like damn, I really gotta deal with all of these guys. It's not necessarily fun or hard, just annoying. It also doesn't help that this game has something we call artificial difficulty. Quick tip, don't play this game on hard. Hard in this game doesn't mean a more challenging experience. It just means everything takes longer to kill and you die faster. It's not the fun type of hard difficulty. They literally just make every enemy take more hits and that's it. It's bad enough as it is. So play it on easy or medium. You do have these weird powers you get from your glove, and at first you'll be thinking this is like a skill tree or an upgrade station, and yeah, it kinda is. But in reality there are like 4 skills in the game that you just keep improving on. Except it clearly has some stuff that is better than others. And they also all feel super underpowered as well. I swear this has to be the weakest sap ever in any game ever. That wasn't a sap, that was more like a flaccid cock slap. Seriously, this game has a severe lack of impact on weapons and stuff. But then you can also just take back the skill points you spent. So you can try all of them out, see which 2 you didn't like, refund them, and just stay with the ones you like forever. It's not deep like at all. But yeah, the enemies are super spongy and you are super underpowered. But I mean, look at the combat. It looks like so much fun until you fight more than 3 enemies, which is a lot of the time. This combat gets really clunky and fast. You go from focusing and dodging to just getting the fuck out of the way in general. So it plays a lot more like Doom 2016 if you had a licorice and a water gun filled with cream cheese as weapons. So you literally just dodge to make room between the absurd horde of incoming attacks and enemies, not to necessarily dodge their attacks. It's honestly a lot less funner than it looks. In here you struggle to get away from enemies. They gave you movement that is meant to be used for 1v1s. Which is why honestly the boss fights are actually really cool. They actually play out the way they should because the combat and movement was built for the low enemy counts. You put more than 4 enemies and it's just walking backwards and spamming dodge to stay away for as long as you can. It gets clunky fast, and this sucks because the enemies all have unique movesets and stuff. They all feel like they serve a purpose, you know? Like how each enemy in the original Doom play a significant role that changes the way you approach an area or encounter. So devs would put specific enemies in specific spots to make you think of how to approach that encounter. The ingredients are all here in Atomic Heart, but then the devs just spam all the enemies at once and said fuck it. Imagine if Doom did that. If they just spam all the enemies they had without really thinking of their placement or main purposes, it would be nowhere near as good as it is today. And I think that is the biggest issue. Not only does it have artificial difficulty when selecting a difficulty, but the devs artificially made the game more difficult by just spamming enemies. Oh, we need to make the game harder because the player is further in the story now. I know, let's just spam more enemies. That's honestly how it felt. That is like literally what it felt like. I could see the game being decently good if the devs stopped the enemy spawn and actually thought out the encounters some more. And you can't tell me they weren't doing enemy spam. I mean, they literally have infinitely respawning enemies as soon as you leave the first area of the game. As of right now, there are 2 DLCs out. I only played the first one and that was so bad. I honestly feel like they were mad because they received pretty average reviews in general. And they already had promised for DLC, so now they were kind of butthurt like, damn, really? That's all? I remember when the first DLC was coming out, I was thinking to myself, please just stop spamming enemies and think of the encounters a bit more and you'll actually have a really good thing here. I just went over how the enemies felt super spongy. So they added regenerating enemies that you had to kill 3 times for them to die. And I just went over how the weapons feel underpowered and they give you a stick to fight these enemies with. I also complained about how the pacing is all over the place. And when I first played this DLC, I was like, oh really? They remove all my stuff? Wow, this must be a really long DLC because I just been hitting enemies that regenerate themselves for an hour with a stick. The DLC is like an hour and a half. Honestly, I kind of just give up on the game. I'm not buying the rest of the DLCs unless I hear good stuff about the next one coming in, which I'm not sure when. But honestly, if they fix the last 2 DLCs, I'll be happy. Just make them a bit longer and make them actually playable and fun. Nowadays, if you play it right now, you'll have a decent time. It's actually like good. It won't blow the schmingles at your brain or anything, but everything I went over is why it failed at release. Let me make that clear. At release, it was terrible. Now it's kind of decent. So what happened here? I forgot to mention that this is Mundfish's first game. Well, it's not really their first game, but it's like their first main game. And it definitely feels like it. It definitely feels like a company's first game because I feel like it almost has a lack of direction it wants to take. For example, I just feel like the whole open world area is kind of stupid. Like it just feels like they added that so they can say it has an open world. And just the lack of enemy variety, guns and powers, it really does feel like they allocated a lot of their team into other stuff that wasn't necessary. And then just the fact that it has balancing problems and issues like that, it really does feel like it has a bunch of problems that is caused just by the fact that this is the company's first game. So it really does feel like this is just because of it's their first game. So I hope in the future they make better games if they're planning on that. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say. Bye bye.